Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and we bring you another beautiful episode of the Breaking Free Show, and I'm so happy to have you here today. And I know that your time is precious, so I am very honored that you have chosen to spend it with us and to share your time with us. And I want to introduce Amnon. Hello.
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 How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Fine. How was your week been?
My week has been really wonderful, actually.
Yep. Same here.
Busy already. And it's a test to how busy I can be and how busy I can take. Because it's busy.
Yep.
So, you too?
Sign of things to come.
Things to come. And I just want to say I had a beautiful weekend this weekend. And one of the things I did was I got to spend time with my grandson, who's 2.5 years old. And he loves to watch the Today Show in the morning. And he does something every morning when he watches the Today Show, and he does it all the time when you take him out. He waves to the people. So I thought today I'm just going to say, wave to the people, because that's what he does. He walks into the restaurants, he looks in the windows, and he just waves to the people. He thinks everywhere he goes, he's on the Today Show. So I'm waving to all of you out there, and I'm glad you're here. So today's show is, I get excited about every week. I really, really do. I'm excited because I get to learn and I get to experience things alongside you all. And I don't know very much about our topic today. I just know that my intuition and my heart tells me that it just makes perfect sense. And so I'm really excited to hear something that I must have known somewhere in my history, in another life. I don't know. But I know that it makes perfect sense, and I don't know anything about it. I just know sound healing makes perfect sense, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to introduce to you my guest, Jill Mattson. She has been doing this for probably, I think she told me 30 years. And she is a composer, an artist, a musician. And she has studied sound, vibration, energy, and not just contemporary, but she has also studied historical sound. And it's very exciting to me to talk about ancient times, Atlantis, all of these things that I somehow feel connected with, and maybe you do as well. So I don't want to spend any more time me talking. I want to sit here and learn and be a student. So with that, let me welcome Jill Mattson. Jill, welcome.
Thank you. It's such fun to be here, and we're going to have a blast.
I know we are. Listen, when we're playing our opening, I'm watching Jill's head going like this. Well, she is truly like, she's sound. She is definitely a sound being. So, first of all, just to get us started, and what we're going to do is, Jill and I were chatting about this a bit, we're going to talk some in generalities so that we all can somehow get on the same page, or a little bit on the same page, and then we're going to talk a little bit more specifically. But I do want to invite any one of you out there to please feel free to call in anytime you like. You can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can Skype in with us from anywhere in the world to computers 2, that's the number 2, K Voice. As you can tell, Jill is with us on video. If you Skype in with us, you'll be on voice. So with that, Jill, welcome.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So tell us about sound healing.
Okay, let's start with science. And if you were to be on a bridge and drop a couple stones into the water, they make rings, and those rings interact. So think of sound and sound waves that do the same thing. When you drop the stones into the water, you're just seeing a 2D version of it. So it's fact. Sounds interact, and they change and influence each other. So if you have two rhythms, the stronger rhythm will overcome and make the lesser one match it. So it actually changes the vibration, the energy, the actual beingness of the lesser vibration. Then the second major scientific contribution to this arena is resonance. And again, this is fact, undisputable science. And that would be if you had like two violins and in one violin you play, I don't know, the G string, wrong string to pick, and then in the other violin you do nothing. But the G string over here is going to softly sound. So, energy transferred, invisible, but it transferred to things that are close by that have the same frequency. Now, it's a subtle transfer, it's subtle energy, but it's consistent, can't not happen, and its cumulative effect can be very powerful. So, one more little variation. And in music, there's the word octaves. And octaves is the exact same note, same frequency, like bum bum, only it's just higher or lower. Bum bum, same note. And if you were to think about it science-wise, if you have a string, just cut it in half, the whole string is bum, and then half of it's bum, same note. It's just double the cycles per second. There you have it, science in a nutshell for sound healing. So energy transfers through sound. You ingest sound, can't not. So just as you would not go to a hospital and just start randomly taking everybody else's meds, think about it. You ingest sound. So you're ingesting things that impact you on every level all the time. And we're like clueless. And if you'd like me to bridge to ancient times, you see they had a little bit difference between our science. Our science says that a light wave has different properties than a sound wave, and therefore they don't interact. However, ancient science, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom from Atlantis to Egypt to China, all over, would disagree with that. They would say energy transfers between everything because everything is energy. And they measured it, counted it, plotted it, made formulas. That's what Hermetic magic is. And they would make sound formulas. That's what magic words were in Egypt, is that they're recipes for vibrational energy. That's what a mantra is in the ancient Hindu tradition. It's a recipe, carefully plotted sound way to give you a blessing. And just in one more thing, like if you were to think back to science again, a baby, a neonatal baby that might be a little jaundiced, they'll apply blue light to increase the bilirubin levels right in the bloodstream. So our science already utilizes the transfer between light and sound, or the impact of light and sound, so that there's energy transferring between light, your liver, your skin, your thoughts, brainwaves, your feelings, which are very specific characteristic emotions, everything. And that's the premise for almost all mystic and magical information throughout all of antiquity. It's like underneath, let's say, feng shui in China, they're balancing colors and shapes and different elements, but underneath that is the sounds of the elements and the vibrations within those. They're balancing everything. So you see that ancient wisdom is, it's all about numbers, and they look in nature and they see all these patterns that God made, like the Vesica Pisces or a 5-pointed star. They transpose that to geometry. And what is geometry but numbers? Then they transpose that to cycles per second for sound or a rhythm pattern, just numbers. And then they would ingest the work of God to enlighten themselves. So it's, I don't know, how's that, Marilyn? Is that kind of a broad overview?
Well, I'm listening. I'm holding on to everything you're saying. And I was visualizing some of the things that I can recall doing myself. I remember when I was in a restaurant once, and it was very, very loud. And my initial reaction was to speak to my husband at like to scream, to get above the sound. When I realized, though, that wasn't going to work. I needed to get underneath the sound. And when I got underneath the sound, he was able to hear me, and we could have a conversation that was underneath the sound. We created our own sound.
Right.
So
because
yeah.
humans have the ability to focus on the whole range of sound and decide what is most healing for them and ingest it. Like remember being in 6th grade, I do, and the teacher's chatting away about something really boring, and then there's some hot gossip being whispered. You know, man, you can turn that teacher off and tune right into that gossip.
Yeah.
So a lot of who we are is what we pay attention to.
So I want to ask you, so you gave us a really nice, overall kind of synopsis of how it all fits in. And so what purpose, when these things were being tracked back, for what purpose did they recognize the fact that we ingested these energies and that there was this flow of energy and it was healing and all of that? Did they know that?
Absolutely. And they know it to a far greater degree than sometimes our imagination can even comprehend. For example, when you get into the real early stuff through the archaeological findings in Central America, where they're beginning to interpret the Incas and Mayans and different American Indian tribes, they talk about Atlantis, and there's some in through China and through Europe, etc. They talk about people, the initial beings, being telepathic. So they're hearing this beautiful music through clairaudience. So they're not actually using their ears, definitely not for entertainment, definitely not like music for entertainment. My goodness, no. And they're not even using it to communication, because if you ever get on the same wavelength as someone, you can share some communication feeling that's so much deeper and more complete than a simple word. It's like the word's a skeleton of the information. So these people are already energetically connecting in on ways that we can only imagine and occasionally glimpse. So why sound? Well, they use sound for everything. Think of it like a jackhammer for growing a limb, lifting, changing your liver, for warfare, for making your enemies sick, for growing your crops, doubling your yield, for building, for emotions, for relationships, for everything, to communicate with plants and animals. They're using it for everything, even time travel.
So you said that the words are a skeleton.
Yes.
So what is contained in the energy, in the sound that makes words a skeleton? What is in the music?
Okay. A word is a vibration.
Right.
But a thought or a feeling has maybe different levels. So think of it as like a word is like you've got a skyscraper, a word's one floor. But below a certain word, you have thoughts, feelings that may or may not even be consistent with your words. For example, hello. 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 I mean, hello had nothing to do with what I was communicating there. Nothing. It's just like a carrier.
Gotcha.
And,
okay.
And
gotcha.
you get the full feeling with the energy underneath. And so they were more concerned with the complete communication.
Gotcha.
So that they weren't sidetracked by using sound the way we do today, because they had better methods.
Gotcha. I gotcha. That was great. Several years ago, my husband and I coined a phrase. He was saying something to me, and I was being sassy back, and I gave him an answer, and it was a good answer. And I said to him, "Quick thinking, huh?" And he looked at me, and he said, "No, quick listening." Because, right?
Yes.
Because, so you're shaking your head. So what are you shaking your head about? Tell me.
Well, actually, if he's thinking the same thought, then you picked it up.
Yeah, you're done at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Quick thinking, there's more to process. But with quick listening, you've arrived. There's no more. You've got the feeling, you've got the information, you've got everything all wrapped up in one, and you're done. So what you're describing to me is what I would be wanting to use quick listening for. You take it all into account and you bring it all together.
It's more complete.
It's more complete. Absolutely. And you don't just do it with musical notes. I mean, you're doing it with all kinds of sound, right? You could be doing it with the birds, with the everyday hustle bustle of sound that goes around us all the time.
Right. And remember, energy transfers from different levels. So the sounds that you're listening to, very subtly, it's small, but it'll affect how you feel. Obviously, go to a movie and listen to the soundtrack. But it'll also affect your brainwaves. And subtly, a certain sonic diet will affect your physicality, your relationships. You can even go in and look for people that you're friends with and see what the fundamental frequency is that they're radiating and see how they complete you or maybe meet your frequency needs.
Could you give us an example of what you mean by that? I know you said the hello is perfect. Now, what would be, what could we use in relationship?
Alrighty. Okay, if you were to add up, remember everything's energy. So my thoughts are their brainwaves, they can be measured. Well, my skin vibrates at its lowest level. So you can measure your skin, your heart, your thoughts. You can measure everything within. And in fact, most of the information in your body goes through the vagus nerve, which goes through your voice box. So your voice is kind of like a holographic representation of who you are. Ancient Sufi masters used to say that they could tell how successful or the evolution of a human being just by listening to their voice, not even seeing them. So, so you have all these levels of information. If you were to just do simple math, like come up with an average, and there's software that will do this. So you can come up with an average and say, like, I usually radiate primarily a G sharp. And you might radiate, let's say, a D. People are different. And, you know, there's software in science that can actually measure that. There's different ways of doing it. And the ancient people had so much wisdom. They would not like see brainwaves in a straight line. They would not see colors in a straight line. They would not see music like on a piano, like in a straight line. Everything was always a spiral. And so if you put colors on a spiral, like a color wheel, okay, you'll notice that on the color wheel, right across the chart from each other are complementary colors, like red and green, or blue and orange. And when you look at the math or the cycles per second, you'll see that they're kind of like a seesaw. So like if you have too much red frequency and then you don't have enough green. So the idea of like the ancient Chinese and many of the ancient civilizations was to reach harmony and balance. Because when you get too much or too little of a particular frequency, that again transfers energy to your muscles, to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your health, then you start to get out of tune and sick. So they would balance everything. They would balance, they would have their music change throughout the year because the energy, the feeling, let's say, of fall is so much different than, let's say, winter. So their music's going to change. So they're keeping you constantly in balance. So it's like you're constantly exuding the sounds of the rainbow. You're complete. Think of ascension as mastering white light, which would be mastering the thoughts and the feelings and the physicality of red and orange and yellow and blue and green and indigo and violet. And so they're keeping complete. They're keeping harmonious, and they're doing it consciously. They're doing it on purpose by what they listen to. I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Chris said and just as you were saying that, Chris said that she imagined that you would radiate different frequencies depending upon the time of the day and what's going on in your life, you know, at a given time, which is exactly what you just said. Basically, absolutely. I mean, depending upon the time, you know, the morning you might be more receptive, needing something different than you would be tomorrow morning, you know, or tomorrow night. So, and
one of the things that changes each day is not only the weather, what you ate last night, if you had an argument last night, or not only the personal things and the environmental things, but another thing, ancient people were great astronomers. Like in the Bible, you know, the wise men, they're magi, they were astrologers following the star. So when you go way back, the origin of astrology is sound, because there are little vibrations coming in from the movements of planets. Think of, think of space as like a big ocean, and the planets move, they make a wave. And you can buy them off of, you used to be able to buy them off of Motorola. You could get them for like $9.99. You could get the frequencies of the day. And they're just underneath our hearing range. So they're like low little geomagnetic frequencies that change. And that's fact. Mm-hmm. And so they're saying that, you know, we pick up on those and they slightly modulate us. And so they would have environmental music, have personal music, have emotional music, health music, and also astrological music, which I did in one of my CDs. I'm emulating that, my Stardust CD. Mm-hmm. They would do nature music, which I'm emulating my Paint Your Soul. And the way they did that was, their idea of science and ours is just not alike. They would say that science would be looking at everything that God makes, nature. God made the heavens, God made the earth, the plant, and then they would look at it in terms of geometry or shapes. So they're going to see, for example, like a Fibonacci, that would be a series of numbers that creates the spiral, the same spiral found in a galaxy, a seashell, thousands of times in my body, in a cornstalk, a beehive, everything. You know, God has favorites when it comes to numbers. And then everything they listened to in music was always this spiral, converted to cycles per second. And in fact, Earth stopped listening to this at the Renaissance. Prior to that, all over the globe, people are listening to music that is tuned to this sacred geometry, which is a shape found in nature. And it was also a sound that they tuned to be one with God, like to enhance their enlightenment.
It's very interesting. And I just want to suggest that if you're listening to us, not if, but you are listening, and you want to take part, in our chat, if you go down near our video, you can see a little space and you can put your name there and click OK, and you can be part of the chat. There's some interesting conversation going on, and you can certainly ask questions in there and just comment back and forth and meet some of our other chat friends. So we'd love to have you do that. So is it music that we make up on our own, or are all these types of rhythms and music, is it there for us to purchase, or how does that work, Jill?
Well, in ancient times, they would have used a different musical scale. And right now, we have the equal temperament scale earthwide. And it's very unnatural. It's not a spiral if you were to graph it. It's a circle, like we're spiritually chasing our tails or something. And some of the ancient sound patterns would have been awkward for us to listen to. Like, people attuned certain sounds and make them harmonious. And most of us can relate to that. When jazz first came out in the 20s, it was scandalous. It was the work of the devil. Well, now it's elevator music and helping you to buy carrots in the grocery store. It's not even racy. And so because we got used to that, we harmonized to that. And so the ancient sound patterns we would perceive them to be out of tune because we're used to a certain pattern. And then based on the work of physicist Robert Becker, he said that the most impactful frequencies on living beings is little subtle ones. And he was doing a lot of research on like the star frequencies or geomagnetic frequencies, where a bird or a bee would tune into north to learn where to come back to the next year. And he was saying that the most impactful ones are, again, these subtle little frequencies, because they'll come into your body and transfer not necessarily on your ears, but maybe even through cell-to-cell contact, which he said would be like an analog or more complete information wave. Anyway, make a long story short, I'm a composer and a musician. I just love it. I usually channel my music, actually, so I need to give credit for somebody. So what I've done is I've put all these ancient tuning patterns and their formulas for advancement and enlightenment, for health, for emotional cleansing, for building positive habits. I put them all in tuning forks and subtle little frequencies, and I put it within my music. So it's very pleasant to listen to, and you're just subtly ingesting the ancient formulas.
So when you listen to this music, do you have to listen to it regularly to feel the effect, or can you listen to it one time and feel a change, a shift?
It depends on how sensitive you are. I think I have so far about 76 pages of people, strangers writing me and telling me how powerful the music was. But that, I don't know if that is necessarily everybody. Think of it this way. Think of yourself as a glass container. And let's say you're not a patient person. And patience is a frequency in your emotional octave or your emotional realm range of frequencies. So every time you're patient, just think like you're putting a drop of patience in. And then when you get impatient, take one out. So the idea to be a patient person is that you want to fill your bucket up. And that's the idea of the Hindu mantras. The only glimpse that we have of this ancient kind of idea of using music for everything that survived is in India with the Hindu masters. And they will give their devotees, their followers, a mantra which will be certain sounds which are definitely crafted for you to ingest to help you body, mind, soul. And then they'll ask you to say it thousands of times. And the deal is that each time you say it, you take a drop of that energy and you fill up your bucket. So each time you're patient, you become a patient person with so many repeats. So they're saying enlightenment, being a better person, is all about repeats and habits. So I would say that each time you listen to the music, you start ingesting drops of the positive ancient formulas of the blessings. And how big of a dosage you want is up to you. Obviously, the more you listen, the more powerful it is, simply in terms of quantity.
So which of all these cultures was the most powerful, strongest, energetic culture?
Each one was different. I would compare them to like the rainbow. For example, like if you think of ancient China, they always tuned to an F, which relates to it's the same frequency, has an octave resonance with the color green. And all of their music was in patterns of fives and the rhythm patterns and so forth. At the same time, the great Hindu master was the Hindu Brahmins were in their prime, and they're tuning to a C, which is red. Notice their complementary colors are at the same time. They have a balancing effect. They're neighbors, and they're learning different lessons. So my thought is that the civilization that's tuning to red, for example, is learning emotions associated with red, action-oriented. I was red with rage. I was red with passion. People with green, Buddha's associated with green. Green's associated with health, with abundance, with lack. And look at Buddha's life. Now, Buddha comes in as an avatar in a society that has music that relates to green. Into red, but green and red, they're kind of like the seesaw, if you will. He comes in radiating primarily a green frequency, according to ancient mystery schools, and he's teaching the lessons, the emotional lessons that would have octave resonance with the frequency of green, which is one of the biggies is abundance and lack. So you see Buddha coming in as a very wealthy prince, and he wanders out, as the story is told, into the real world and sees poverty and is shocked. Anyway, of course, we all know his story. He goes out, he's poor, he starves himself, sits under a Buddha tree, and ends up transforming that whole world in India. And he shows them how to master the emotions, the frequencies with lack and abundance. So I would say it's more like every musical epic is like radiating a certain color, is another way of saying it. Another way of saying the same thing, each epic is learning different emotions, different skills. So the Egyptians are learning about knowledge and have all the priests. Hey, man, that's a big thing. A lot of people are priests, and they're coveting their knowledge. A lot of it is sound healing. They're coveting their knowledge because knowledge is power. They're learning wisdom. And then you can go to the Greeks, where their music is based on a numeric pattern of 4. They're tuning to different colors. The Greeks are learning a lot about beauty. Look at their art. Look at their art, so beautiful. They're somewhat feminine, and their music is all delicate, heavenly little instruments. And so they're learning the lessons of beauty. And then you look at Rome, again, just a little bit after, almost at the same time. And if Greece was learning about the music of feminine and beauty, then Rome was learning about masculinity and power. Their instruments in Rome would be trumpets, drums, big, loud, boisterous instruments, not the harp and the lute of Greece. And look at their society. I mean, their entertainment is people getting killed in the arenas.
So I have some questions. So I want to ask you, first of all, how important is silence in listening to sound?
Throughout antiquity, in every single culture, bar none, everyone said that one of the fastest tracks to enlightenment is listening to the sounds of silence. Notice the oxymoron, sounds of silence. And the technique was that you start listening clairaudiently, and to start this, you listen to little literal sounds within your ears. So first you might hear your blood flow, your nervous system sounds a little bit more like a high-pitched ting. And then when you get beyond that, they talk about starting to hear sounds of nature, and like crickets or flutes or drums or bells. And as a disciple progressed throughout these ancient mystery schools, the sounds in their ears would change. And it's kind of like when they had mastered all the components within silence, that they then reached enlightenment. And think of this. Think this is a good analogy. Think of the galaxy. And then within the galaxy, there's our Milky Way, and then there's our solar system, and then there's our Earth, and then there's our country, our state, our town, our family, us. And then underneath that, you can go into molecules and electrons and quarks. And so there's like dimensions within dimensions. There's levels within levels. So the silence in a universe, underneath it, you would have all these different levels. And they would listen to the silence to go to the next lower level, which would be energy. And it would have a sound. And then the further deep they went, they believed the closer they got to God. The information would be more subtle and powerful.
Right, and the meaning of life.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, so how, first of all, Michelle on our chat is asking if you're, because she's recognizing you're doing some sign language. Is that right? Is that
just subconsciously?
Subconsciously, okay. All right. Well, I guess when you're connected like that and you're listening, I mean, there is something that makes sense. I mean, because when they teach, the interesting thing is when they can teach sign language to a baby who doesn't know anything about language really, and they get the language, so they have to be getting it on some level, right? They have to be hearing it on some level. So that's very interesting. So one of the things you mentioned was that you were a G sharp. Is that true? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You're literally, and what does that mean? What does a G sharp mean?
Well, ancient wisdom, and I would believe also that when you come to Earth, that you have several lessons that you're going to learn for your life. Another way, and some people have one primary and a few have two, usually not more than that. And another way of saying it is like, let's say the primary frequencies actually relate to zodiac signs. So I was born a Capricorn, which actually radiates A, which relates to the color blue-violet. And I had been in charity work, and in about 30 years in, I don't know, it's like someone turned off the switch. I mean, this job I loved, I mean, it was just over within me. And I quickly left. My whole world changed. My fundamental frequency changed. I was now a G sharp. Within a G sharp, there's writing I'd never written before. I'm now writing books. Within a G sharp, it's a little bit blue and indigo blue. And I have a whole book on this called Secret Sounds Ultimate Healing. So if you get into the G sharp, it's more of like a blue. It's a nurturing. It's a different set of life lessons. So it's going to impact me physically, mentally, and emotionally. And when I master that, when I'm able to control and handle both the upside and the downside, because we live in duality, the positive and negative attributes of a frequency, then I can move on. And let me do a little sidetrack to explain that better. I love the way Donna Eden, who sees aura colors and fundamental colors, which is the same as saying you have lots of frequencies in your body, but also a primary color. Same thing, just different octave. So she saw, like in the 1920s, 30s, a lot of people radiating, most people radiating the color, because she's voyant, of green. And then in the United States at that time, we become rich. You know, there's all the big companies, start Kodak and General Motors and all these big power, and we become a world power. Final exam for that lesson, that frequency, that color, I'm saying the same thing, would be the Great Depression, abundance and lack, kind of like with Buddha we said. Next, Donna Eden saw most people primarily radiating the color, the fundamental color of blue, which is nurturing, caretaking. During this period of time, you see Social Security starting, welfare starting, funding for disabilities. You see caretaking. Prior to this time, spare the rod and spoil the child. I mean, you're a bad parent if you don't whip your kid. Now, instead of whipping your kid, you get them a tutor when they're failing in school. Mm-hmm. So you see the energy changing. I would suspect that the final exam for blue would have been World War II. Hitler was enabled. Nobody stopped them. They wanted to, but they didn't.
So, and then, Jill, let me just ask you. So how is this energy shifting? Where is it shifting from? I mean, is it shifting from the energy prior? How are we noticing this?
Well, I would say right now we're in violet, and that started with the hippies, started in the 60s. It's purity, transformation. Look at our society. We're always bringing up dirt on everybody, particularly our leaders. We love to roast them. And so we're learning about purity. We're learning about freedom. During this time, the German wall falls. Many communist countries fall. And I think the final exam is terrorism, which is a lack to our, could take our freedom away, is taking our freedom away. And so I believe that there's cycles within cycles, but that, the predominant frequencies change like the rainbow. So, once you do a full sweep of the rainbow, then you start all over again. So I would say that the next lessons would be pink, would be the lessons of red infused with white light, and hopefully we're more evolved. And that's why the white light's in with the red or pink. So
where and how is it evolving? How does it go from one color to another, or from one sound to another?
That I don't know. I just like Donna Eden observes it, and she sees it changing with her clairvoyance. I'm just going throughout history, and I'm telling you it's always changed. It's always been a rainbow. It's like we have different playgrounds to play in, and you can learn different things in each one.
So everything is energy.
Yes,
we know that. And you mentioned Hitler, or you can see different leaders in history, historical events that have occurred. So if everything is energy, what energy is dominating the shift? Is there a specific energy dominating the shift? In other words, you've talked about color, we talk about sound. Of course, everything has a vibration, so everything has like a sound. The color has a sound, everything has a sound. But what is dominant? Where is the negative, or is it negative energy, or is it just energy? How is that? How do you see that?
Okay. I guess I have two answers for you. One is perhaps, I don't know, is that what God is? Who's the master that sequentially and thoughtfully changes the frequency? Like over time, you see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. You see them in order. So it certainly makes me think somebody or something either scientifically is logically progressing, or there's some God that's, going through these every lesson. So I don't know who makes the changes. In terms of positive and negative, the people who did the most work on that was in ancient China, Confucius and others. They, with Taoism, where they're talking about the positive and negative of everything in balance. And what they say is, they would say that like an F and an F sharp would be like the positive and negative attributes. So F comes in, you learn abundance. The frequencies start to rise like a thermometer, and then you start to learn F sharp, and that's the negative lesson. That's how the ancient Chinese would explain it. Other ancient societies talked of it just that we're in a world of duality, that everything has like polarization. So every frequency is going to have like a positive and negative and a neutral. Like patience and impatience being the same frequency, but they're just like a magnet, one magnet, right, with a positive and negative pole.
So I want to play, and that makes sense, and I want to play some of your music, but before I do, Chris is asking, what is the color, if you are a Taurus, what is your frequency?
Hold on.
And what is the primary color?
Okay, when is Taurus... When I'm just looking for my book, I have a chart with that.
So while you're doing that, let's play a little music, and
okay,
then you can tell us something about what we're playing.
Sure.
Maestro, hit it, Amnon. Okay. So I can only tell you, I don't know, but I immediately felt it in my chest.
All right. That was, let me see. I was in the space of forgiveness and mercy. I was in my heart when I wrote that. So that might have something, because you see, when you're composing and performing, not only are you hearing my voice, but you're hearing what I was thinking and feeling, because they're combining on the tone. So and I played the instruments too. So the energy space that I was at, the extra information was compassion and mercy and forgiveness in that particular song, which is probably what you're picking up on.
Probably.
Because you're intuitive. In the background are the frequencies in that one of the spirals and a numeric pattern that I found in ancient Egypt and in the Middle Ages called the solfeggio tones. And if you were to think of God creating the earth, and he had an Etch-a-Sketch, which is that little old-fashioned toy where you have two knobs, and this, one knob makes a curve and the other knob makes a straight line. The Fibonacci and the phi, phi, the Greek phi that they revere, that frequency would create the curve you see in the spiral, or a curved line. Think of the solfeggio as creating the straight lines. Solfeggio was used in the inventions of Tesla and Kepler, those famous, intriguing scientists that wouldn't reveal their secrets because they didn't think mankind was ready, or they got ruined or something.
Maybe we weren't ready.
Maybe not.
So that's how your music would reflect a portion of your experience, and then I would pick up or whatever I was feeling, and that's the transfer of information, transfer of the energy. I mean, I felt it immediately in my chest. Now, I would be curious, for those of you that are listening, if you're on the chat, to jot down where you felt it. I think that would be really interesting to hear.
And that particular album is designed to take your whole consciousness. It's soft and it's subtle, and it's a slight feeling, but because it's taking everything up with the ancient patterns, the idea is that it just slowly you rise on all levels. Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of people telling me after they listen for quite a lengthy time that they're more apt to find their path or make a change or go on to their next step, is what I get the comments on that particular CD. Wow.
Well, and Michelle is saying 432 hertz is supposed to be a divine frequency, or the divine frequency.
Yes, and I know that that's a really big thing, and that does radiate in your heart frequency. It's not in our particular scale that we listen to today. If you go back about 200-300, that's when people were advocating for the 432 as A, and with the Schiller Institute, with Rudolf Steiner and others. And but when I look back further, see, people who are proponents of A as 432 are looking back 300 years, which seems to be almost to the music history available, and saying this is better, and it is definitely a more heart frequency. Mm-hmm. But when I go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, what I'm saying is at one point in time there was a frequency that was opening up a root chakra, and as we all evolve, then we're into orange, and we're working on our, then the solar plexus, and then the heart. Right now, if you look in the world arena, you'll see that a lot of orchestras are now starting to break the rules, and they're starting to tune up to higher notes. So it's kind of like we're transferring from our heart chakra up into our throat is what I think is next. And is it kinder, more loving, and more beautiful to have music with the 432A that's going to resonate in your heart? Well, yes. But there's also many colors in the rainbow.
Sure. So while I want that answer that you've been looking up, and I have another question. So you talked about like that, the elevator music, and now you spoke about the orchestra. So are people realizing that music could do all of this? That music can generate these reactions, can cause us to have action. Are they doing it subconsciously?
Maybe. I do know, like, let's say you had a festival of bands and you're trying to compete to be the best band. Very often you find one band will tune high. So they're going to go up to that 440A because they're more brilliant, they're brighter. And you get a little different, particularly since they're going into, like, the throat chakra, a little bit more of a far-reaching kind of a sound. And sometimes it helps them stand out in a competition, or if their music is played on the radio.
Right.
Certainly not for the good of mankind.
Right. But that's different because, there's sometimes you do listen to music and it is motivating and it gets you want to, jump around and the beat. And instinctively people know that. There's some things they know. Maybe they're not putting it all together. But we're beginning with, I don't know if we're beginning or we've always known that music could do these things, could get us up off the sofa and do things, and there's music that we like to clean by. There's music that we like to get dressed with, all of those things. So tell me what you found out about Taurus, because I have another question for you.
Okay, I have a chart here, and just because I'm sure everybody. Okay, orange is D or Gemini. Orange yellow is D sharp or Cancer. Yellow, E, Leo. Yellow green is F or Virgo. Green is F sharp or Libra. Green blue is G or Scorpion. Blue is G sharp or Sagittarius. Blue violet is A or Capricorn. Violet is A sharp or Aquarius. Violet red is B or Pisces. Red is C or Aries, and orange red is C sharp or Taurus.
So can you give me the Aquarius again? What is that? Because I'm Aquarius. I want to.
Violet.
Violet.
A sharp, B flat.
Interesting. All right, and I'm sure Chris. Can you repeat the Taurus one more time too, so Chris can hear that?
Yeah, that's orange. Now this is my Secret Sounds book here,
okay.
And this has. It has so much on sound. It has a lot on your voice. I believe that was orange and a D sharp. I've lost it, but here it is. No, it's C sharp, Taurus, orange, red.
So, so tell everybody where to find your stuff and what they're going to find when they find your stuff, because she's got a lot of stuff to find.
I do. On Jill's Wings of Light, jillswingsoflight.com. I have a half-hour free music. I have some of the spirals and the solfeggio tones on one selection, and then I have the star music, the ancient star tuning, and I have the frequencies of all the elements. If you look at your body in that kind of a perspective, in that kind of a tuning, then I have these healing flower symphonies. And what I've done is I've gotten into the frequency of an emotion, which is the same as the frequency of a flower remedy for anybody who's into that. And I have that frequency as well. And then I go in and use ancient techniques to take out like a negative energy and add a pot of them. Like you take out impatience and you add patience. And my big joke with these is that they aren't for pansies, because you do clear negative energy. And to heal it, you feel it. Like, so if you're going to leave fear, you're going to feel just a flash second of fear as it leaves your emotional fields. And there's 2 CDs, and then I have another CD that's kind of like a spa. It has frequencies of the collagen and the muscles in your face and neck and vitamins. And here was my idea. The idea is that as you age, your muscle gets longer. So think of if you were to pull your muscles, this is gross. If you were to pull your muscles off and like string it, like a guitar or a violin, the little ones are going to be high pitched, the bigger ones are going to be lower pitched. And through entrainment, the louder frequency always overcomes the lesser. So I have healthy, youthful muscles in your face and neck, plus collagen and vitamins. And that's deep wave beauty. And the idea there is also the frequency of beauty, and the thought that, like with Quasimodo, he's deformed, he's ugly in the Disney movie, and he's so beautiful because of his feeling state and his actions. And so it's got like the frequencies of beauty. So much you can do.
There's so much music. I'm like, my head is spinning, and so, I'm thinking, oh God, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about that. What I want to know about is you. I want to know about how you're like how you are now that you are who you are. Does that make sense?
Kinda.
How do you live your life? I guess is my question. With sound healing.
What has happened with me with my sound healing? And, other things have happened, so it's not a pure experiment. But I'm definitely very intuitive. I have now most every psychic skill there is. And I easily tie in like the ancients did on energy levels and can skip the other levels because I've learned through my teaching of others, I suppose. And I've learned to use sound and music and vibrations for pretty much anything.
Fascinating. Michelle wants to know again, which is the one for anti-aging, the music?
It's called Deep Wave Beauty. And I have a special site for that one, or it's on Jill's Wings of Light, musicforbeauty.com. I have more information on just that one CD. And then I have a chakra CD, too. Because I spent like something ridiculous, like 30 years studying this. And every great civilization would tune your chakras, but they all did it different. And at first, I got all nervous, like, oh no, this isn't right. But then I had peace, and I included them all in one CD. And it's a guided meditation. And I put in, like, the frequency. If you were imagining red, I'm playing red. And there's a certain rhythm also associated with a chakra. There's a certain element, which is a sound. There's a certain crystal associated with each chakra, which is a frequency. There's a certain organ, which is attached to different chakras. Well, I'm tuning them. So it's a guided meditation, but it's sunk with all these little tiny sounds that make it very powerful.
So how do you want to be known in the world?
I am the change in this earth so that people will begin to understand the great resource that they have in sound, not just my stuff, but that sound energy is a tool for them, and they need to wake up and quit being blind, because you can be used, you can be made sick. I mean, sound isn't necessarily a gift from God. It's a tool. And they need to use it for their blessing and benefit. I would love my music to be in airports and hospitals, not just mine, but others that know this information. And I'm getting it out so others can use what I've learned. Change the world.
Yeah, change. I mean, and it's something. It's like kind of like what I'm thinking about breath lately. I mean, it's all around us, and we don't have to do too much. I mean, it's a gift. It's all here. All we have to do is breathe.
And here's an idea, Marilyn. In the ancient mystery schools, they kept a lot of their stuff hidden and mysterious and never wrote it down. Like in the Pythagorean mystery school, I mean, you could face death if you blabbed their secrets. They were very cautious because their stories were that the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria had something to do with people misusing energy, sound vibrations, and that energy can be used for control, for mass murder, mass killing, and very negative reasons. Hitler was into this information, by the way, and they only kept the sound information for the adepts and the masters, and it was mostly verbal because people weren't ready for it. And if it got out, somebody could use it for negative purposes.
Right.
And I'm assuming since they gave this to me, I mean, strangers walk up and give me books, and people show up on my doorstep and say, you're supposed to interview me. And I've been given this to get it out, so I'm assuming the time is right.
Well, and I feel the same way about myself. I'm a master of very little, I guess, in the scope of things. But I'm a listener.
Well, that's pretty powerful.
And that's and so I listen for people like you to show up, and to bring other things to the forefront that, we may not always have the opportunity to have tuned into. Sometimes you need somebody like you, colorful, who's going to vibrate at a G sharp, colorful and bright, and can relay this in a way that, some of it is going to be, out there, and some of it's going to be right smack at you. And and then it's an opening, it's an invitation to go and learn more. So a final word from you.
Just go to Jill's Wings of Light. There's videos, there's articles, there's a wealth of gifts there. And the free sound healing music comes with every 2 weeks I send out a little newsletter on how to heal the sound, just like a page. So ingest it and let the music play you.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really gonna come and read some of your stuff and listen, because I really, being the listener that I am, that's the level I'm supposed to go to. I'm listening to the words, but now I'm listening to the emotion, and I'm listening to that. So now I want to go to the next thing. Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing this with us today. It's been fabulous. And thank you all for being here with us today and sharing this and sharing your vibration and sending the messages back and forth. We love it. And Amnon.
Thank you.
And wave to the people. Remember, Go out there and just wave to everybody. Say hi to everybody. Send that good love back and forth. So I want to thank you all. And Jill, thank you once again. It's been fabulous. Thank you. And we'll have you back again. And
I'd love that.
Everybody.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Brook, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.